Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Southeast Media Sunrise, dedicated to giving a voice to authors of all genres. I'm your host, Jodi Hockinson. Joining us remotely by phone today is Robert Thor, author of NJustice, the true life story of Robert Thor. And that title was NJustice, as in the letter N at the beginning of the boy band NSYNC, who you may know was the band where Justin Timberlake got his start. More than a memoir of life, personal growth, and faith, Robert's book chronicles a story that correlates with a national news and entertainment story. Robert has been an elder care consultant for decades and never lost a dime for his clients, until entering into a business relationship and later a shocking experience with con man Lou Pearlman, creator of NSYNC and Backstreet Boys. Despite conducting his due diligence, Robert had no idea that one day in his future he'd be used by the feds to bring down the world's largest Ponzi scheme, only exceeded a decade later by Bernie Madoff. Welcome, Robert, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me today, Jodi.
So tell us what brought you to write this book now, a decade after your story with Lou Pearlman finally came to a close.
As you can imagine, it's a really catastrophic event in my life, in my business, and it affected my reputation. I've prided myself over the 3 decades of being in business on my reputation. So this is to kind of clarify things and give you my story.
You've got a multi-ethnic background and a multi-faith one. Can you tell us a little bit about your childhood and family life when you were growing up?
Thank you. Yeah, I was born in the Bronx, New York, and my family are French and Puerto Rican and Cuban and Jewish. Oh, like the United Nations.
In the life of Robert Thor, what would you say are some of the most memorable parts?
Well, some of the most memorable parts would be getting a target letter from the Federal Bureau of Investigations, and my business partner and wife, we were in bed wondering what is the future for us, who's going to be taking care of our 2 little children.
You must have been horrified.
Yeah, it was a very, very scary thing because your mind goes in so many different ways.
So back to you. Let's talk about the differences between growing up in New York and Florida.
Well, obviously in New York, it's a lot of concrete. It's a city. I was born in the Bronx, and it was kind of a tough neighborhood. And then coming down to Florida, it's been, palm trees, beaches, and a really nice environment to grow up and live and conduct business as well.
So your book touches on faith, starting with your birth. Can you tell us what happened when you were born?
Well, when I was born, I had complications. So this is back in 1959. It's not like today. So they gave my mom and me our last rites. And so that was it was a big deal. It was very scary. I didn't know because I was in the womb. And then at age 13, I dove off a bridge and hit bottom and almost lost my life, or was almost paralyzed. And so that was a pretty scary time in my life.
If your friends had to give you a nickname in high school or remembered you for something in particular, what might it have been?
Because of sports, I was still involved with a lot of sports, and they just called me Oliver by your last name, Oliver. So so that's pretty much how they really called me, and because I was in track and field events and cross country.
So let's talk about how you arrived at your current occupation as an elder care consultant. When and how did you land on this occupation?
I started off working for a company in 1984 and doing Medicare supplements and long-term care insurance and annuities. And it just evolved in 1990 to having my own company and dealing with annuities and investments in qualifying seniors in the state of Florida for the government program Medicaid. So when they're in a nursing home, we can shelter their estate as much as we can legally and get them benefits because it's $8,000 to $12,000 a month in a nursing home in Florida.
This book talks about your growth in this field of elder care. Tell us how you help families and what the career has meant to you.
Well, it's really since we converted over to helping people achieve Medicaid. Prior to that, in selling insurance, people might drop their insurance. And when we get involved, when we get a lot of our clients from nursing homes, we do ER work. We can actually get them benefits even though they're already in a nursing home. So a lot of it is helping the family members and getting benefits for them. And it is very rewarding because they're very, if you can imagine your mom in a nursing home and all of the things that come up, and she has to be there for the rest of her life. It's such a scary place to be. And that's what we do. We help our clients achieve Medicaid, and we have had experience in that because, like, my father's in a nursing home for right now 7.5 years. I've been on the other side of the table, and I understand it more so than possibly, a competitor.
So, as we get into your story, we discover that you are introduced to a man who nobody would know about till years later, Lou Pearlman, creator of NSYNC and Backstreet Boys. Your book tells us that you were invited by him to offer his transcontinental stock to your elder care clients. Your positive and fun experiences with this man were surely part of the allure. Can you tell us about that a little?
Yeah, I mean, when we met him, there were no boy bands because I was in the early 90s. And then we formulated, because we were dealing with Transcontinental, the airline company, which wound up being the Ponzi. And then because there was no fleet, we found out later on, fleet of airlines. And then he started with later on with the boy bands in Backstreet, and then NSYNC came up. And so there was a lot of other entertainers as well. So it was kind of a fun thing to be around at the time, not knowing what things were, because I'll give you one example. The Nelson brothers, we were in the limousine with, and those are like in the 90s, there were two guys with really long blonde hair. And they had a bunch of popular songs at the time. It was Charlotte, my ex-wife's birthday, so I had on the phone, had them sing a song to her. It was kind of like different, met all kinds of entertainers in that outside of just the boy bands.
So, your book goes into some serious details about what happened next. What was your first indication that something was awry with transcontinental stock?
Well, when we had meetings with the state, we weren't under investigation or anything like that, but they just had questions because there was a peripheral agent that had some situation, and our name came up. So that was the first time in my life I heard the word from our attorney, Ponzi. I said, this possibly could be a Ponzi, he said. And I said, you mean Potsy from Happy Days? I've never heard it before. So I was just kind of like, what the heck, And so, yeah, that was an inkling that it could be really bad. And in our first meeting with the state, they said that you could still represent and sell the product. It's just a registration issue. As soon as they said registration issue, we were like, that's a big red flag. So we immediately wrote a letter with the help of our attorney to disassociate with Transcontinental and Lou Pearlman.
So, can you describe how the transcontinental Ponzi scheme worked?
Well, there are all kinds of Ponzi's out there. As like Madoff's was off the stock, and Lou Pearlman's was off of his ESA account, Employee Investment Savings Account. But essentially, they're fraudulent investments, and they just go ahead and take in monies with whatever kind of spiel they have, and they have to make sure that they have more monies coming in to meet their notes when they're paying out.
Can you talk about what it was like for you personally to be embroiled in what was at that time the largest Ponzi scheme in recorded history?
Well, at that time it was, and there was drama with it because Lou Pearlman was on the run internationally. Ultimately, they found him in Fiji, one of the islands there in the Pacific. But we were in kind of like quicksand because we didn't have, the attorneys that we were working with kind of shunned us. Lou Pearlman was coming after us and saying bad things about Charlotte and I to deflect from him at the time. And then the state was ultimately wound up investigating us to no avail. We never, like I said, we never had a red cent to pay out in any fines or anything like that. But in this country, you have to have a lot of assets to protect yourself, especially even if you're innocent. It's a sad thing to say, but there's probably a lot of people in prison that are innocent, and because they didn't have the proper representation.
Yeah, that's so true. So tell us, what was your worst moment in all of this?
I go back to the Federal Bureau of Investigation target letters. For whatever reason, they wrote on the same day 2 letters to me and 1 to Charlotte. And opening that up and reading that you are the subject of the target letter. So that means you lose your rights. So what they do is they put field officers out to interview your friends, colleagues, and business associates. And as a twister, we found out from some people that talked, and let us know, hey, by the way, we were visited by the, feds, and they said at the end, we shouldn't associate with you. So it was a lot like Nazi propaganda, like back when they used to do that to Jews. That's the first thing, because it was not a nice thing to do for our reputation, for Charlotte and I. That was horrible, and this is our own government, and that was a defining moment. So it's really upsetting and disappointing about our government, and the book really goes into detail with that.
So what kind of things helped you get back into the groove of life again after such a life-altering experience?
Well, parallel, things that are going on since my faith and belief system has always been there. But trust me, in something like this, where you have things coming at you all around you, and then you're raising children, running a business, and trying to deflect a bunch of negative items, catastrophic things coming at you. My faith in church and belief system, and that is the biggest thing that got us through that. And our church definitely, faith.
So your book talks about how your work in Latin America got you invited somewhere totally unexpected. Can you share?
Yeah, my senior pastor, Kurt Parker, I'll plug my church, Harborside Christian Center in Safety Harbor, Florida, said, hey, Robert, we were at lunch after church. He said, Robert, why don't you go to Nicaragua? There's a missions trip leaving Saturday. So I did it, and it was a life-changing event for me. It goes into more detail in the book, but it definitely was a life-changing event.
That is fantastic. What is one of your biggest takeaways in life that you can share with listeners today?
Well, persevering, keeping going, and having faith, and it was forgiveness. Because I did. Trust me, I had all kinds of choice 4-letter words, and maybe with 2 letters after it.
I can imagine.
Thoughts about Lou Pearlman, because when you're deceived. But that was one of the things that doing missions work and humanitarian work, feeling trust in humans again, because when you are deceived like that, it really takes away things from you that you've built your whole life, building your reputation, your, everything, your persona gets hit pretty hard. So, helping people out really helped me out a lot.
Well, it looks like we're out of time. Anyone interested in purchasing this book can log into semediapro.com or visit amazon.com. This book is available on Kindle and in paperback. You can also visit njusticebook.com. That's the letter N, justicebook.com. If you want to know more about how Robert helps families with Medicaid, visit his site at longtermcarequalifications.com. We have been speaking with Robert Thor, author of NJustice, the true life story of Robert Thor. Thanks again for joining us today, Robert.
Thank you. And the last giveaway that I want to say in the book is to remember is forgiveness is the key. And I think that's the biggest takeaway because, forgiving people is so important.
Thank you. That's such a wonderful parting thought. We could all use that advice. And listeners, if you're interested in getting your book published, please visit us at semediapro.com and click on the book publishing link. This is Jodi Hockinson, host of Southeast Media Sunrise, Southeast Media Productions. Like us on Facebook at Southeast Media Productions or visit our website at semediapro.com.